My love story in the stillness between her storms. It was the kind of afternoon that whispered and shouted. The sun filtered through the tree branches like gentle apology for the heat it carried, and the wind moved lazily, rustling leaves with a rhythm that made the world feel like I was breathing. The campus grounds were quieter than usual, most students choosing the coolness of concrete over the company of trees. But he liked it here. The one always found something sacred in stillness. That's when he saw her. She was seated alone on a stone bench that had grown moss along its edges. A paper bag rested on her lap, its corners folded too many times to count. Her head was tilted slightly, as though she was listening to something beneath the surface of the world. Her fingers danced absentmindedly along the pages, not flipping, just tracing. She looked like someone who had swords written all over her, the kind that didn't beg to be read but waited quietly for someone patient enough to listen. The one hesitated at first. He wasn't usually the type to approach strangers, especially one who carried silence like a veil. But there was something, he would later call it gravity, that pulled him forward. Is that Neruda? He asked, pointing towards the book. She looked up slowly, as if surfacing from a dream. Her eyes were deep, not dramatic in color but rich in expression, like a long forgotten poem. A brief pause, then a soft smile. Rupi Kaur, she replied, but I don't mean the comparison. Her voice was calm, unhurried, each word set down before the next one arrived. Tuan chuckled, rubbing the back of his neck. Well, at least I was in the poetry section. She closed the book gently, patted the spot beside her. Do you always guess people's book wrong, or am I the lucky one? He said. They talked, or rather, their circled conversation like birds tracing warm air, never in a hurry to land. Her name, she said, was Nona, and she said it with a laugh, as if it didn't belong to her fully. There was something careful in the way she spoke about herself, like she was both the storyteller and the unreliable narrator. I like quiet places, she said. Too many people to talk just to hear themselves echo. And you? She asked after a moment. What do you seek when you come out here? He paused. I guess I came to remember how to breathe. She nodded, understanding too easily, like she knew the weight he didn't say out loud. There was a lightness about her, but not the kind that floats, the kind that covers something dense, like fog over a lake. He sensed both calm and chaos in her, a tension between things held together by a fragile thread. From a distance, two squirrels darted between trees. A couple walked past them, laughter trailing behind like perfume, but for Tuan, the rest of the world had already gone quiet. Here, on this warm bench beneath a banyan tree, something had started. Not a spark, not a firework, just a shift. He didn't know that she would later vanish for days without word, that there would be nights when her voice would tremble over the phone with no reason, or morning when she'd say things so sharp that cut through the air like knives. He didn't know she was living with Storm. But he also didn't know that she could write words that made time stop, or that her laughter could feel like an embrace, or that she remembered small impossible details about him, like how he always blinked twice before asking a question. For now, all he knew was that the quiet next to her felt different. Not empty, not lonely, just still. And in that stillness, when the moon dances, Nona was not the kind of girl who filled the room. She was a girl who made you forget the room was even there. After that first meeting under the banyan trees, their paths began to braid themselves together, not in grand gestures, but in a way morning light knows how to find a window. The one and only became, without definition, they shared more silence than conversation. But in those silences lived entire galaxies. She would often call him late at night, her voice wrapped in hush of midnight. Are you awake? I am now, the one would whisper. Good, Chiche. Because the moon is dancing tonight, I didn't want to watch it alone. Sometimes they would walk around the campus barefoot on the wet grass, not caring that the world slept while they wandered like ghosts chasing constellation. Other nights, they just sat outside her boarding house, sipping bitter coffee sachet while she read aloud strange poems she wrote on napkins and receipts. Nona had this way of making ordinary feel enchanted. She could turn a laundry day into fable. She would look up at the night sky and say things like, do you think stars get lonely? And Tuan would look at her, wondering how someone could carry so much sky inside their chest. She made the world bigger, and he listened like a man starving. When she was up, when her light blazed, she was everything at once, brilliant, witty, electrified. She left to her heart, danced without music, and scribbled poems on everything that would hold ink. She dragged the one into bookstore just to smell pages into random cafes, just to sit and watch strangers live their life. My thought arise sometimes, she confessed once. Tapping her temple, it's like my brain forgets to rest. Do you want me to slow it down? Tuan asked softly. She smiled, half sweet, half sad. No, just walk beside me, that's enough. He didn't know that what she meant, not fully. He thought she was just intense, just deep, just this room. But love makes you blind in gentlest way. Donna gifted a poem on cloudy Wednesday, handwritten and folded like a secret. The paper smelled faintly of cinnamon, probably from the chai she spilled on her desk. She said, the poem read, you are the quiet between my chaos, the pause in my scream, the hand I reach for even in my dreams. It was the first time she showed him the correct beneath her smile. That day, he asked, half joking, did you just confess? She didn't answer, just smiled, turned away, and hummed the song he didn't recognize. But the poem stayed folded in his wallet, close to where he kept his ID and his emergency money, a piece of her next to everything he couldn't lose. Not everything was magic, of course. Nona could be unpredictable. Some days she cancelled last minute, some days she didn't reply at all. She would vanish for hours, then return with story and a mood that didn't quite match. "Where were you?" he'd ask. She'd shrug, outrunning my mind. He didn't understand, but he didn't push. There was a time, late evening, right after sunset, when she suddenly fell quiet during their walk. Her usual playful energy seemed like a candle catching its breath. "Do you ever feel not real?" she whispered. Tuan paused. "Like a ghost?" "No," she said. "Like everyone sees you, but no one truly sees you." He didn't know what to say, so he reached for her hand. Nona didn't pull away. She didn't say thank you. She didn't smile, but her fingers tightened. That was the thing about her. She didn't always speak her truth out loud, but her body, her poetry, her eyes, those told the story she tried to hide. Maybe Tuan didn't understand all the chapters, but he was willing to read them slowly, without skipping pages. He began noticing things, small signs, how she had organized her books obsessively when anxious, how she bit her nails when thoughts swarmed, how she sometimes looked too happy, too wired, like the world couldn't catch up to her pace. But love, at its purest, is curiosity wrapped in patience. So he stayed, not because he was perfect, but because in her chaos he saw a reflection of something within himself, something beautiful and little broken, like a mirror that had been mined with gold. The fall and the flicker. The first time she disappeared. For real, it wasn't dramatic. There was no argument, no slam doors, no final sentence meant to hurt, just silence. Tuan had sent her a voice note that morning, sometimes ordinary, a soft "good morning," a joke about the cafeteria, awful coffee, and a photo of a cat that looked like it was judging the entire campus. The kind of message that normally would have earned a laugh or poem in return, but she didn't reply. Not in the morning, not by nightfall, but the third day. Tuan's chest had learned a new kind of ache. The quiet wasn't peaceful anymore. It was suspicious, heavy, like a room where something had gone missing, but you couldn't tell what. He walked past her boarding house that evening. That the lights in her room was off, curtained down, no shoes outside the door, no fluttering paper notes. She often tapped to her window, little inside jokes only he could read. Something wrong. When she finally messaged, it was nearly midnight. "Sorry, Brinberg, trying to fix it. Don't wait for me, okay?" No greeting, no emoji, just that. Tuan stared at the screen, his heart doing something uneven in his chest. He typed, deleted, typed again. "I'll wait anyway." She didn't reply. Days passed. When she reappeared, she looked smaller, not physically, but like someone who had been falling to herself for too long. Her eyes were distant, dimmer. Her smile felt like paper, easy to tear. "I had one of those weeks," she said. Tuan didn't ask. Instead, he handed her her favorite donut, green tea glaze, no feeling. She took it like someone touching kindness for the first time in days. "You should know something," she said softly, not meeting in his eyes. "I am bipolar." Bipolar. The words felt like glass. Not because he didn't understand the term, but because the way she said it, it wasn't a confession, it was a warning. She continued, voice like dusk. Sometimes I'm lightning, and sometimes I'm just the smoke after the fire. The one stayed quiet, letting the moment breathe. I am medicated, she added. Mostly stable, but it still comes and goes. The highs, the lows. I get impulsive. I push people away. I disappear when I hate myself too much to be seen. He reached for her hand. She didn't stop him. Why why are you telling me this? He asked. Because people like me don't usually get to keep things, especially good things. The one squeezed her hand gently. Then, maybe I'll have to be stubborn. Donna laughed, soft like rain on rooftops. You are. You are. You already are. From that day forward, Tuan learned a new language. Not of words, but of weather. He learned how to read the temperature of her mood by the music she listens to. When she played lo-fi beats and wore oversized sweaters, she was drifting. When she posted 3 a.m. poetry filled with fire and stars, she was soaring. When she stopped posting at all, she was sinking. Lovinona meant checking the sky before he spoke. And yet he didn't feel bothered. He felt trusted. She began to share more about therapy. She began to share more about therapy, about her past, about nights she didn't want to remember, about how she once stood at the edge of her rooftop, not to jump but just to see what almost looked like. She shared the scars on her heart with the same honesty she once reserved for Poons. One day, they lay side by side in the university garden, grass pressing against their backs, the sun lazily crawling down. Do you think I will always be like this? She asked. This mess. Tuan turned his head toward her. Do you think a galaxy apologizes for being chaotic? She blinked, tear welling, not from sadness, but from being understood. No, she whispered. Exactly, he said. So don't apologize for being a galaxy, Nona. In the weeks that followed, they had good days, great days even. Picnics with cold noodles and warm laughter, stargazing on the dorm rooftop, wrapped in the same blanket and reading letters slipped into each other's back. Inside jokes that made no sense to anyone else. But the storm never fully left. It hovered in the distance, sometimes roaring, sometimes silent, but always there. And yet, Dua never ran. He stood in the rain with her, even when she told him to go, because in the stillness between her storms, he had found his favorite kind of peace. Things we don't say out loud. There is a kind of silence that doesn't feel empty. It lingers between people like mist, soft, persistent, sacred. There was the kind of silence that often surrounded Nona and Tuan in the latter days of their story. Not because they ran out of things to say, but because sometimes words were too small to hold the weight of what they felt. They still saw each other often between classes after study groups, and the war near the back gate where the mee goreng was always too salty and too good to any outsider. They were simply close, perhaps almost lover, perhaps just friends. No one could quite tell. But there was An invisible thread pulling them close. One that didn't need labels only presence. Yet one began to notice a shift. Small at first, like a trap slipping under the door. Nona's laugh grew quieter. Her hands fit more. She stopped doodling during class, something she used to do obsessively. Sketches of ice, planets, broken clocks, always spinning. He asked her once, "Are you okay?" And she smiled. That kind of smile people use when they're hiding in plain sight. "Just tired," she said. He nodded, pretending to believe her, not because he did, but because sometimes that's all you can do. People tell the truth only when they're ready, not when you beg for it. Beg for it. It was a Thursday evening when she finally unraveled. Tuan had been waiting for her for an hour outside the library. She had promised to come. They had plans, a walk, then quieter dinner, maybe music afterward. But the sun dipped beneath the horizon, and Nona still hadn't shown. His phone buzzed. A message. "Don't be mad, I'm at home. Can't move." The words too loud inside my head. "I'm sorry." Tuan didn't reply. He just stood there, breathing against the weight in his chest, and then he walked. It took him 15 minutes to reach her boarding house. He knew her landlady well enough by now. When she knocked, the ibu simply nodded and opened the gate. "She's in," the woman said, being quiet. The one climbed the stairs, heart pounding. He knocked once. No answer. He knocked again. "Nona, it's me." A pause. Then the door cracked open. Just a sliver. She peeked through. Her face was pale, eyes swollen. She hadn't cried. No, this wasn't the aftermath of tears. This was what came before them. The storm that hadn't broken yet. "I told you not to come," she said. "And you knew I still come," he replied gently. She stepped aside. Her room was dim, curtain drawn, air heavy, books scattered, clothes on the floor, a notebook lying face down on the bed like it had been thrown. Anona sat on the edge of the bed. Tuan stayed on the floor, legs crossed, back against the door. She didn't speak. Not for a long time. When she did, her voice was barely a threat. "I had this part of me." Tuan looked up. "Which part?" "This." She gestured vaguely around herself. "The empty, the weight, the way I disappear even when I'm in the room. I want to scream, but there's nothing left in me." Tuan swallowed. "You're not empty, Nona." She laughed, sharp, bitter. "Don't romanticize this, Tuan. I'm not a storm to be weathered. I'm just a sick. I can't love you the way you deserve." The words sliced. He didn't flinch, but he felt it deep. "You think love is something that needs to be perfect?" he asked. "Because it's not. It's messy, it's patience, it's choosing to stay even when the script gets ugly." Nona looked at him. Finally, her eyes were wet, but her tears refused to fall. Why do you stay?" He breathed in. "Because when you're quiet like this, I still see you. I see the girl who writes poems on napkins, the one who sings when she thinks no one's listening, the one who gave me a piece of her soul, told me to keep it a safe." Silence again. She buried her face in her hands, and finally she cried. Not loud, not dramatic, just quietly, like a river finding a lot to break it dam. The one didn't move closer. He knew better. Sometimes comfort was space and not touch. So He sat there, guarding her, letting her fall apart, knowing she would gather herself again when she was ready. After a while, her voice rose again. I am scared, Tuan. Of what? Of hurting you. Of losing myself again. Of you waking up one day and realizing I'm too much. He nodded. I'm scared too. She blinked, surprised. Scared that I won't be enough to help. I'm scared I'll say a thing. I'll say the wrong thing. Scared I will love you so much I forget to love myself too. There, truth for the truth. And for the first time in hours, Nona smiled. A real one. Fragile, trembling but real. They didn't fix anything that night. Bipolar disorder wasn't a problem to have solved in a conversation, but they carved out something stronger than comfort, understanding. A silent promise, I see you, even in your shadows. I choose you before he left. She touched his hand lightly. I'm glad you're stubborn. He smiled. I told you I would be. That night, Tuan walked back. Under a sky half filled with stars, he looked up. Some stars flickered, some disappeared behind clouds, but they were still there, just like her, still there, even when the light was hard to find. The sky after the rain. There are some mornings that arrive without announcement, no bird song, no golden lights, no fanfare, just quiet. It was one of those mornings when Nona woke up and didn't feel the weight first. That alone was a victory. She sat up slowly, still wrapped in her blanket, the sunlight spilling onto her sheets like an afterthought. Her phone buzzed once, then again. Tuan, take outside your door. Come on, just take outside your door. She blinked. Still groggy, she pet to the door and opened it. The resting against the frame was a paper bag. Inside her favorite kopi susu tanpa gula and a small note which is familiar style. Stubborn handwriting. No need to be poetic today, just drink this and let the sun kiss your skin for a bit. I love you even when you forget the words still turning. She sat back down, coffee in hand, fingers wrapped around the cup like it was the first warm she held in days. She didn't cry, instead, she smiled, quietly, gratefully. The following week, they met again under the big orange tree near the backfield of campus. It had been their spot since the beginning, before the heavy talks, before the silence, before the truths were fully unwrapped. She brought a sketchbook. He brought 2 sandwiches and thermos of ginger tea. They sat cross-legged in the shade, the sunlight speaking through like stained glass between the branches. For a while, neither said anything, and that was okay. They were leaning to speak in space between words. And there was something, Luna said finally, flipping open her sketchbook. Tuan leaned in. On the page, a girl sitting beneath a tree, hair wild with wind, stars tucked in the corner of her coat, and beside her a boy with a cracked heart stitched shut with gold thread. He wasn't perfect, but he stayed. Tuan traced the line with his eyes, feeling more than he could say. You made me like a hero, he said. You were, she replied softly, even when I didn't want to be saved. Healing wasn't linear. Some days were brilliant, poetry flowed from her again, laughter returned like an old friend. They danced in her room to silly indie songs and read Neruda out loud, argued about which anime couple had the most tragic ending. Other days, the storm came back. She would cancel last minute, vanish for a weekend, and grow sharp and distant. But she let Tuan in more than before. She told him when her head was spiraling. She showed him the mood tracker app on her phone. She even let him walk with her to therapy, waiting outside like a loyal dog with his earphones across the world. She wasn't healed, but she was healing. She actually healed. Once evening, as twilight painted the sky in lavender, fading a gold, they sat again under the tree, hands entwined. Not tightly, but like two stars learning how to orbit each other without collision. Nona exhaled. You know what I'm afraid of now? Tuan tilted. He said, tell me. That you will wait for me too long, then I'll make you tired. Tuan looked at her, his voice calm like dusk. Then rest with me. Don't run, just rest. You don't have to rush to any finish line. She leaned her head on his shoulder. I want to love you, right? You already do, he whispered. You just love cheerfully, and I'm learning your language. There were no fireworks, no sweeping declaration, just the understanding that love doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers and still echoes forever. On their last day of semester before they parted ways for the break, she gave him a sealed envelope. Don't open it now, she said. Later, when you need it. Tuan nodded. That night, he sat by his window at the campus quiet outside. Cicada singing their lonely songs. He opened it. It said a folded page from her journal. It read, to the boy who stayed. Thank you for choosing me. Not despite the darkness, but with it, you never asked me to become someone brighter. You just sit beside me and actually made the dark less lonely. If I ever forget my own worth again, read this back to me. You are not my savior. You are my witness, and somehow that is more sacred. Tuan closed his eyes and smiled. Epilogue. Years from now, when people ask them how they made it work, he won't give them a fairy tale. He'll tell them the truth. Sometimes, love means staying on the floor of someone's room when they can't speak. That it means carrying both joy and sorrow in the same arms. That loving someone with a storm inside them isn't a burden, but a kind of miracle. And Nona, she will smile and say, he saw me, even when I disappeared from myself. Because real love doesn't always arrive in grand entrances. Sometimes it knocks gently, brings coffee, and say, you don't have to be okay for me to stay.